अधिष्ठानं तथा कर्ता करणं च पृथग्विधम् विविधाश्च पृथक् चेष्टाः दैवं चैवात्र पञ्चमम् शरीरवाङ्मनोभिर्यत् कर्म प्रारभते नरः न्यायं वा विपरीतं वा पञ्चैते तस्य हेतवः तत्रैवं सति कर्तारम् आत्मानं केवलं तु यः पश्यति अकृतबुद्धित्वात् न स पश्यति दुर्मतिः यस्य नाहङ्कृतो भावः बुद्धिर्यस्य न लिप्यते हत्वापि स इमान् लोकान् नान्ति न निबध्यते ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं परिज्ञाता त्रिविधा कर्म चोदना करणं कर्म कर्तेति त्रिविधः कर्म संग्रहः So the body, the will to perform the action, and the various faculties, the organs of action, and the five sense organs, the mind, the intellect, all of them, karanam cha prithak vidam, that is the third detail. The body, the first detail, then karta, the will, the third, the faculties, that is the third, and the fourth is the vitality, and the fifth is the law of karma. This law of karma is called Daivam. I am interpreting it because even though it is true that the sun is required, we require the Adhidaivam. We require the external forces to help us perform our actions. But ultimately it is our conviction in the law of karma that helps us perform the action. Our conviction in the law of karma is that if I perform an action, it is going to bring me result. That conviction. Minus that conviction, we will not perform the actions. We may have a motive for the results, unless I am convinced that what I perform has some result. Actions have results. This conviction is necessary for me to perform actions. So minus that conviction, I cannot perform, and therefore it is the law of karma that is the fifth factor. The law of karma. So the body minus the body, I can't perform an action. Therefore we can say it is the body that is involved in the mobility, in action. It is the will that is involved in executing actions. It is the senses and the organs of action, it is the faculties and the mind and the intellect that are involved in executing an action. It is the physical vitality that is involved in performing an action. It is the conviction in the results of action, thought of conviction. Conviction is not something that is independent of being a thought. Thought of conviction is involved. Thought of conviction is involved in executing an action. These 5 factors. Therefore, every action, the means of every action are only these 5. There is no 6th factor. Minus the body, there would be no action. Minus the will, there would be no action. Minus the senses and the organs of action, without the mind, intellect, there would be no action. And without vitality, there would be no action. Without the conviction in the results of action also, there would be no action. It's very important. Minus the conviction. Suppose when you come to the class, if you have the conviction, I will get some benefit out of it, then alone you will come. Either you appreciate the benefit from the class, or at least you believe in the benefit. Some Shraddha. Either you believe in the benefit or you appreciate the benefit. If you understand, yes, I will benefit it. It's like when you go for your walk, you appreciate, yes, it will benefit me. But when you go on a yatra, you may not appreciate that you will be benefited, at least you will believe. Shraddha to hai. Either there is Shraddha in the result of an action, or there is Jnanam about the result of an action. Shraddha in the result of action facilitates action. Jnanam in the result of action also prompts you to perform an action. Supposing you neither have Shraddha, neither belief nor Jnanam, you will say, leave it. You will not take interest in an action. I can't move towards performing an action unless I either appreciate the result or at least believe in the result, or at least blindly believe in the result. It makes no difference. Whether it is enlightened conviction or unenlightened conviction, it doesn't matter, but I must have the conviction in the result of an action, and then alone I can perform the action. Now there is another thing, unless I, as a student, as an educated person, I must appreciate the law of karma that is operating in the world. Every scientist appreciates the law of karma. The law of karma is nothing but, in the last class I said, the law of causation. Law of causation includes the law of karma. In fact, in the Shastram we call it the law of karma. We call it the law of karma. But otherwise, in general, it is the law of causation. Law of causation. If there is an action, it has a result. It's a law of causation. If you show eyes to somebody, the other person also will show eyes. That is just causation. Therefore, these are the 5 factors. But the problem Bhagavan says here is, instead of confining every action to these 5 factors, I try to impose it on my existence. Our existence is distinct from these 5 factors. The body, the faculties, the vitality, and the breath, and the law of karma. Our existence is a conscious existence. Consciousness is not synonymous with conviction, is not synonymous with breath, is not synonymous with the senses and the organs of action, it's not synonymous with the body, it is not synonymous with the law of karma. It has a distinct identity. So we may have the hands and feet, we may have the senses and the organs of action, we may have this or that, we may have the body, we may have the breath, we may be living in a world which is governed by the law of causation, but our identity is a purely conscious identity. And mobility doesn't exist, consciousness doesn't move. Body moves, vitality moves, thoughts move, breath moves, everything moves. But the one who is aware of the 5 doesn't move. The one who is aware of the movement doesn't move. This is a very important logic that you very, very diligently capture this thought. The one who sees the movement doesn't move. This is a very very, very crucial reasoning done by your scripture. The one who sees the change doesn't change. The one who sees the disappearance of something doesn't disappear. So we are that ever witnessing being. We are ever that Sakshi. We are constantly witnessing the thoughts that appear and the thoughts that disappear. So if I am aware of the thoughts that appear and disappear, the one who is aware of the thoughts that appear and disappear doesn't appear. That means what? Our conscious identity is eternal. Very big thing. Our eternity is right evident there. I see the passing nature of things, therefore the one who sees the passing nature of things is not a passing thing. The one who sees the passing nature of things is not a passing thing. Diligently capture this thought. Your education will give you a lot of benefit. Use your education to think what Vedanta says. Your education can give you much more than a salary of a few thousand. Is nothing great about it. And such great education, such great years of disciplined education need not mean only a few lakhs of salary or thousands of salaries. In fact, education is meant to make you think of the truth. Here says the next verse, you see, Sharira Vang Mano Bhiryat Karma. Sharira, that is the body. Vak, the speech, Manobhihi, by the mind. Yat karma, whatever action is performed by the body, by the speech or by the mind. So our basic mobility is physical, oral and mental. This is where we are mobile mostly. We are physically mobile. We are orally mobile and mentally mobile. As children we are physically mobile. And as grown-ups, later on, we become both physically oral, or physically mobile, orally active, and when we become old, physically less active, orally more active, mentally active but worrying, not active. When an elderly person is not mentally active, he is mentally sedate, and in terms of worry is very active. Chintagrasta is all the time worrying because he doesn't know. But whatever it is, that is how Bhagavan has created this world. Children are very active. All our mobility is only threefold. Physical activity, oral activity, mental activity. But all these three activities are facilitated by the body, the faculties, the breath, the vitality, the will, and the law of karma. Sharira vang mano bhiryat karma prarabhate naraha. Prarabhate begins, naraha man. When man does any action, when man performs any action, whether physical action, oral action or mental action, nyayam va viparitam va, good or bad, that is immaterial. Whether we perform, whether we do good deeds, physical good deeds or physical bad deeds, or physical, orally we are mobile, good way, bad way, or mentally we do good deeds, bad deeds, that is immaterial. That's a different topic. But whatever we do physically, orally or mentally, whatever we do, it doesn't matter. Panchaite tasya hetavaha. The facilitators of good deeds and the facilitators of bad deeds, they are all only these five. What about consciousness? Consciousness doesn't facilitate an action. Consciousness is merely present. Our existence is a peaceful presence. Consciousness is not directly involved in action. Consciousness doesn't trigger an action. The pressure under the water triggers a wave, but water itself doesn't trigger a wave. It's a very beautiful point. Presence of water doesn't trigger a wave. Presence of water doesn't trigger anything. It remains peaceful. Water remains water. Sand, a stretch of sand, doesn't trigger any mirage. It remains sand. Then what triggers mirage is that I don't see the sand as it is. When I don't see the sand as it is, then I start seeing a mirage. Ignorance triggers illusions. Ignorance triggers illusions. If there is any object, it can trigger motion. If there is a body, it is inbuilt in the body to be mobile. It is inbuilt in the senses to be mobile. It is inbuilt in the mind to be mobile. It is inbuilt in the intellect to be mobile, thinkingly mobile. Even the law of causation, it is inbuilt in it to be mobile, means to be active, to be functioning. Laws are all the time functioning. Laws are functioning. Laws are not silent. Laws are functioning. But consciousness doesn't function. Then what does consciousness do? Consciousness is. In the beginning I said, yesterday's last class, you have to follow with great diligence. Air is mobile. Fire can move in space. Water can move. The earth can move. Every object in the creation has the capacity. It can move. It does move, in fact. Even atoms move. Everything is mobile. Their static nature is an illusion. That the objects are static is an illusion. Everything is mobile. Everything has the potential to be mobile. The earth is mobile. The sun is mobile. The moon is mobile. There is no object which is just like that. It's mobile. Our bodies are mobile. Our senses are mobile. Our mind is mobile. And more than anything else, our halat also is mobile. Is it not? Our halat is not the same thing. Yesterday's halat is different from today's halat. It is mobile. Halat is all the time. Everything is mobile. That is called creation. Constant mobility. In fact, that constant mobility is an English translation of samsara. Samsara means constant mobility. Constant change, all the time mobile. Swamiji, what if everything is constantly mobile? So what? Let it be so. Why should we? Let us be a part of that mobility and enjoy the ride. Says no, mobility tires you. Mobility limits you. In order to be mobile, it has to be limited. The body is limited, therefore it is mobile. The air is limited, therefore it is mobile. You have to hear this sentence. The air is limited. It is not unlimited. There are places where there is no air. In that sense, air is limited. It's mobile. Air can blow where it is not. Therefore, mobility implies limitation. Mobility implies limitation. Air is mobile and it is limited. Fire is mobile and it is limited. Fire is not all pervasive. There are places where there is no fire. Water is mobile because it is limited. The earth is mobile because it is limited. The body is mobile because it is limited. The mind, the intellect, the senses, they are all mobile and they are limited. Mobility implies limitation and both tire. Mobility tires me. What we socially call work is nothing but mobility. Mentally I am worried, it's mental mobility. All the time, the rapid movement. Worry is nothing but a rapid movement. I am all the time thinking about this, that. Tires me. Mental mobility tires me. Physical mobility tires me. And the limitation also tires me, because the sense of limitation also tires me, because it is contrary to our nature. Our nature is consciousness. To be conscious is our nature, and to be conscious means to be silent, to be present. To be conscious does not mean to be mobile. To be conscious means to be still and silent. Like space, in contrast to air, the space is. In the context of the space, the air is mobile. In the context of the space, the fire is mobile. But the space itself is not mobile. Then what is space doing? It is. You have to somehow or other understand the meaning of the phrases that I am using. To be, it is. The space merely is. It peacefully is. It unlimitedly is. There is no place where there is no space. There is no place where there is no space. So space is unlimited. And the unlimited is not mobile. Similarly, our conscious identity is also unlimited. It only is. It's peaceful. We are by nature peaceful, conscious beings. We are just peaceful, conscious. Because we are peaceful by nature, we are able to overcome the mental noise in sleep. All the noise is dumped. The entire noise becomes unmanifest. If noise were our nature, we would carry it into sleep. Did you hear this sentence? Swamiji, you don't know, out of 10 sentences, we hear one sentence. You don't know about us. आगे आगे पता चलेगी आपको. हम तो सुनते ही नहीं हैं. No, don't do that. If noise were our nature, we would carry it into sleep, because we can't renounce what is our nature. If we can renounce something, it's not our nature. Noise we renounce, noise becomes resolved, thoughts become resolved, worry becomes resolved, time becomes resolved, the whole waking struggle becomes resolved, and we fall asleep. Sleep is nothing but going back to our nature. Sleep, because it is so commonplace, we take it lightly. But Shastra says sleep is nothing but going back to our nature. Whatever we sleep to is not our nature. Therefore, our conscious identity, in deep sleep state, our thoughts disappear, but our experiencing conscious identity doesn't disappear, because peace also is experienced. Just as in the waking state we experience noise, in the dream state we experience a dream, in the deep sleep state we experience serenity. That is why after waking up one says, how did you sleep? Oh, it was very peaceful. I had a peaceful night. Call it peaceful night, call it peaceful sleep. Peace is also a matter of experience. If peace is experience, then it is a conscious identity. Experience means conscious identity. Therefore, our conscious identity has no negation. That is our nature. And that conscious identity doesn't trigger struggles. Our conscious identity is. Like sounds take place, but silence is. Silence doesn't take place. Did you hear this? Sounds take place, but the silence is. Silence is. The sounds take place. The same similarly, our peaceful, our conscious identity is, whereas our actions, activities take place. What it takes place is not an attribute of what is. That is why here Bhagavan says, Nyayam va viparitam va panchayate tasya hetavaha. All our struggles are triggered by these, all our actions are triggered by these 5 factors. The body, the breath, the vitality, the will, the senses, and the law of causation. Our conscious identity is silently present. Then what is it that you want to convey? Say, distinguish. See the distinction between your conscious identity and these actions. Let us read this verse. Tatraivam sati kartaram Atmanam kevalam tuyaham Pashyatya krita buddhitvat Nasa pashyati durmatihi Tatra evam sati. When it is so, when only the 5 factors cause all struggles, actions, to begin with, they are harmless actions, but in time every action becomes a struggle. To begin with, business is just an action. I begin business just to be occupied, I start something in order to be occupied, and then slowly it becomes a struggle. So I have a child so that I can have some company. Very harmless intention. But in time it becomes a struggle. Therefore what we call actions all become struggles. And all our struggles are triggered by, they're all triggered by these 5 factors. That is said. Tatra evam sati, when it is so. Kartaram atmanam. This human individual, he makes a mistake of looking at himself as the main cause of action. Kartaram atmanam kevalam tuyaha. He looks upon his self, which is a silent being, which is a peaceful being. He doesn't discern between his peaceful identity and the struggle. The struggles in life triggered by those 5 factors, and his peaceful identity, he doesn't see the distinction. When he doesn't see the distinction, then he says, I am a struggler. When I fail to see my peaceful identity, I carry the thought with me that I am a struggler. This idea that I am a struggler, drives me. Therefore, kartaram atmanam kevalam tuyaha. His peaceful identity is kevalam. Keval means it is only peaceful, nothing else. It doesn't become something else. You see, the table is stable here, it is at one place. It's not mobile. Even though the table is not mobile, it is at one place, but it is potentially subject to be mobile. The table can be mobile. It is still here now, but it can be mobile. It has the potentiality to be mobile. But our conscious identity doesn't have any potential to be a struggler. We continue to be a peaceful identity, but due to ignorance about our nature, instead of looking at myself as a peaceful being, I look at myself as a struggler. Kevalam tuyaha pashyati, one sees. One mistakes one's conscious identity as a struggling identity. One mistakes one's peaceful identity as one's struggling identity. One mistakes one's serene identity as one's struggling identity, a limited identity, etc. There is a misconception about one's nature. In life, the suffering is felt only due to this misconception about one's nature. Lack of food gives me suffering. That is a different suffering that can be handled. Lack of water gives me suffering, but I can handle it. I can find water. Lack of money gives me suffering, but I can handle it, I can find money. That's not. Time itself is a big healer for all these problems. But the suffering born of this misconception, time is not a healer. Time is not a healer for the suffering born of this misconception. So the inner misconception is what is most suffered. If a person is growing old, then he suffers because he thinks I am only this form. It is a misconception. And throughout life one fears the oncoming death, born of misconception. What will happen to my children is a constant suffering, born of misconception. Hey, they can Just as you are living without your ancestors, they will also live without their ancestors. That's not important. Everybody is born with enough ability to survive. So if you are worrying about them, it is not that really they deserve to be worried about or you deserve to worry. There is need to worry. No. Worry is never a need. Worry is triggered by inner misconception. Worry is not a need. Therefore, here Bhagavan says, Pashyati akrita buddhitvat. Man still he lives with the misconception that I am a struggler. Why? Akrita buddhitvat. Because he has no exposure to the scripture. Asanskrita buddhitvat. The mind is not educated about himself. We are all educated about the world, all right. We are educated about various things. I am educated about various faculties. I am educated about the medicines. I am educated about physics, chemistry, etc., various faculties. But I am not educated about what I am. Somehow or other, we are not the topic about ourselves. So I continue to be ignorant about myself, and therefore lack of exposure is called akrita buddhitvat. Even when we study scriptures, we only study them just to know really some values, good and bad, do's and don'ts. Speak the truth, don't tell lies, be honest, be a good. Just a simple ethics. We study scriptures just to find some good ethics. And we try to read, religion is nothing but ethics. Scripture is nothing but ethics. Spirituality is nothing but ethics. But our scripture is not just ethics. It is educating us about our eternal nature. It is a literature. Gita, Vedanta is our literature, our scriptures are the great literature about our eternal nature. Therefore, if we go about thinking about ethics and ethics and ethics and ethics, see, generally suppose you say, please speak the truth. Who doesn't know it? Who doesn't know that we have to speak the truth? Who doesn't know it? Everybody knows it. But still, we try to hear it. Why? Because there is not much reflection required to understand. Honesty is good. Even a small child understands. Honesty is good. Who doesn't understand? But still we go on hearing stories only to talk about, to hear about honesty, to hear about truthfulness. We go on hearing the story of Satya Harishchandra. I don't say we should not. We can go on hearing Ramayana, we can go on hearing Mahabharata, we can go on hearing stories just to pick up the ethics. But then really, ethics is not the answer. Ethics is not the answer. We can follow ethics, but that's not the answer. Like we need ethics, but that's not the answer. We like just as we need money, but that's not the answer. We need health, that itself is not the answer. The answer is our conscious, peaceful, eternal nature. So our scriptures, primarily they are not just indulging in ethics. They are talking about our eternal identity. Are you able to follow? Our eternal identity. Therefore, even when we hear the scriptures, we don't take great interest in looking into the topic, the self. We don't take so great an interest. If I talk ethics, people say, "Bada आसान है." If I tell the stories, तो बड़ा स्वामी जी तो बड़ा आसान चीज बताते हैं. And if I sing some music, बड़ा अच्छी बात है. But if we go into the topic of the eternity of our being, then people fall asleep. Why is it so? Because the habit of listening to the very deep literature is gone. Satsangs used to be Atma Vichara in those days. But in these days, satsanga means just narrating stories. These days, satsanga means what? Narrating stories. But these stories themselves is not the answer. And therefore, Bhagavan says, Akrita Buddhitva. Man's mind is not exposed to Vedanta. Nasa pashyati, he doesn't see. Durmatihi, he is confused. Durmatihi I would like to translate. Human mind is confused because it is not exposed to the Vedanta part of his scripture. Is not exposed to his nature. He doesn't look at himself. He looks at the world all right, but he doesn't look at himself. Let him look at the world. Is that not enough? No. It's not enough. He has to look at himself. The sun must know that it is the sun. Then it can go about lighting up other objects. But supposing the sun doesn't know that it is the sun, and then even if it lights up the other objects, it may think that I am also the objects. When you don't know what you are, one will always take oneself to be what he sees. The light must know itself as the light. Then let it light up anything. The sun must know its brilliance. The ocean must know its expanse, its vastness. Similarly, human being must understand his vast conscious identity, his peaceful identity. As a peaceful person, let him be a father. As a peaceful being, let him be a son. As a peaceful being, let him play any role. If I have to play any role correctly, I have to be fundamentally peaceful. Roles cannot make me peaceful. I have to discover my peacefulness within, and with peacefulness discovered, I should play the roles. Did you hear this, please? I am sure you haven't missed it. Roles will not make you peaceful. You play any role, it has problems. Even if you play the role of a king, it has its problems. All roles disturb mental peace. Whether it is a mother's role or a daughter's role or a daughter-in-law's role or mother-in-law's role, any role, there are roles and roles, difficult roles, easier roles. All roles disturb the mental peace. Clear? And therefore, if I should not be disturbed by the roles, what should I do? Discover your inner peace. As a peaceful person, you play roles. As a peaceful, instead of playing the roles as a peaceful person, do you know what I do? I play the roles in order to get peace. No. Roles can't give me any peace. Roles are meant to be played and forgotten. Don't expect anything from the roles. You play your mother's role throughout life, and at the end of it, don't expect anything. Your son will go away with his wife, and your daughter goes with her husband, and your husband says, so mujhe yoga class jana hai. You will be left alone in the house. What I am saying is, roles can't give anything. That is why whenever we expect something from the roles, we get frustrated. Why? Because they can't give us anything. Very simple, Ji. Roles frustrate us because they don't give us anything. And when they don't give us anything, when they can't give us anything, and when we expect something, we get frustrated. Therefore, what should we do? First, to find the peace of your being. First, have exposure to the scripture. As a peaceful being, as an understanding being, as an enlightened individual, play all roles. Live your life. Don't postpone looking at yourself to the end of life. First look at yourself, then you look at the world. Did you hear that? First look at yourself and then look at the world. The ocean must first look at itself as the ocean, then it can look at the waves and bubbles. There is no risk. But without knowing, if the ocean doesn't know itself as the ocean, and then if it sees the waves and bubbles, it may conclude that I am also the bubbles. There is a risk of misconception. And therefore, Swamiji, how can we look at ourselves even before we begin all the roles? All right, along with the roles, keep looking at yourself. You can't use the first part of life for self-knowledge. Nobody does it. Therefore, I would say, continue self-reflection along with the roles. Continue your scriptural study along with the roles. The roles are to be played and forgotten, whereas the scripture is meant to be studied and understood. The scripture has an eternal use. The roles have a temporary use. The roles are only temporary. Even if you play a mother's role most perfectly, it is still nothing. Your children will be benefited, it's good. I don't say they are all not useful, they are good, but that's not the answer. That is, see what I am trying to convey something, you have to capture it. I am trying to convey something very important. Playing roles perfectly is necessary. But even if you play all your roles very perfectly, it still doesn't guarantee you happiness. It still doesn't guarantee you inner peace. No. You may be an ideal mother, ideal father, ideal son. It means nothing. It all comes under ethics. Ethics has its limitation. Truth is the answer, not ethics. Truth is the answer. The truth about ourselves is the answer. And that happens to be the topic of Bhagavad Gita. That happens to be the topic of Vedanta. That happens to be that is our answer, and whatever is our answer, that is our need. Therefore, if you are educated, use your education for Vedanta, please. Use your education for Vedanta. Don't think, oh, I am highly educated, therefore. Gita is for the villagers, etc. No. But the less educated, they need ethics, that's all. They can't reflect, they can't reason. They can't reason. They can only just do. Education must culminate in self-knowledge, otherwise it is all useless. Okay, ji. Pashyati akrita buddhitvat nasa pashyati durmatihi. This is over. The next verse, let us read. Another couple of minutes. Yasya naham krito bhavaha buddhiryasya na lipyate atva pisayiman lokan nahanti na nibadhyate yasya naham krita. See, when you perform an action, some result will come. But what would be that result? I am not certain. I can never be certain about the quality of the result of an action. But when I understand myself correctly, my happiness is guaranteed. Something, no action guarantees me the kind of result that I want. Some result is guaranteed, but not what I want. Some result is guaranteed, that's a different thing. But the desired result may not come. The desired result. I do business, the desired result may not come. Some result will come. That is the law of causation. But the desired, I get married, but the desired result may not come. The desired mother-in-law may not come. I may get the desired husband, but not the desired mother-in-law. What can you do? That is why there is only one realm where you are guaranteed of your desired result. That is, you look at yourself correctly, your happiness is guaranteed. You look at yourself correctly, that correctly underlined. Look at yourself correctly as unfolded by Vedanta, as unfolded by your reasoning, as unfolded by your experiences. Look at yourself correctly, exactly as you are, your happiness is guaranteed. It's like when you fall asleep, your shanti is guaranteed. Is there uncertainty? Supposing you fall asleep, whether you will be peaceful or not. When you transcend thought, your peace is guaranteed. Did you hear that? That is said here. Sir, only when it comes to the self-knowledge, only when it comes to the self-education, your happiness is guaranteed. It's choiceless. Happiness is choiceless. Your freedom is choiceless. Your peace is choiceless. When is it choiceless? When you look at yourself correctly. Are you able to follow? This is going to be the topic. Will it be interesting or not? So you will come for the next class? Hope you will come. Very difficult to get you to the class. Itna aasan nahi hai. You are all coming from South Delhi. You all come to the Khan market and by the way come to Ramana Kendra. See, you are all coming from different families which are not really exposed to much of the scripture. But you are all highly educated people. This is what my observation is. You are all highly educated people. And Vedanta is just meant for you. Yes. Scripture is just meant for it. If you don't like ritual, so what? And even if you don't follow ritual, so what? You lose nothing. But education, please try to come. Purnamadaha, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva, Vasishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Sadguru Bhagavan ki jai, Ganga Maiya ki jai. Hari Om Ji, Namah Shivaya.
Just a month ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.